Welcome to the Passive Income Podcast. I'm your host, Dividend Dave. Please be sure to join the Passive Income Posse by clicking that subscribe button below. Super excited for this episode. Joining me is Mr. Budget Bill. Please go ahead and give yourself an introduction.
Hello. Thank you, Dave, for having me on this. I really appreciate it. Get an opportunity to be on the Passive Income Podcast. Definitely excited about that, and thank you for that. My name is Mr. Budget Bill. Obviously, that is an alias. My short nickname is Trell, Trell. Although a lot of people think my name is Bill, and it is not. But
I saw
anyway,
you post that on Twitter. Actually, it's Bill pronounced Trell.
Yeah. So a lot of people say that, and I thought about changing the name, but so far we're going to roll with it. But anyways, I am in the financial space. I like to talk about finance, building wealth, real estate, different things of that sort. Coming up with different strategic ways on how to build your wealth. I'm also known as being super frugal. Of course, some people say I'm cheap, but we're going to stick with super frugal. So yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that later on in the conversation. But ultimately, I love finance and just trying to figure out where I can help anyone that's willing to listen and they're wanting to change their life, because I know this is something I definitely needed when I was younger and I did not have that option. So I definitely want to provide that outlet to people that are definitely interested in making that mindset shift and changing for the better.
Yeah, and that's a great point too. Like, you can call it cheap, you can call it being frugal, super frugal, but you know what? If you're figuring out a way to spend less money, that's a good thing, right? Like, it is difficult. It's hard to make money. The money that
Yeah.
you make, figure out a way to keep as much of it as possible in your pocket.
Hmm. Yep. That's what I try to focus on. So, and I enjoy it. It's like a game, so it's kind of fun being able to do it. I mean, for example, you know something that costs $100 and then finally you figure out a way to get it for 20. I mean, it's super exciting for me. So, and my wife has finally got on board with it. So now she gets excited about saving money. Before she was like, I want it, I'm getting it.
Right,
But
yeah.
now she's getting excited about it. So I'm like, finally, it only took about 9 years. So
Honestly, I thought you were gonna say, like, something for $100 and I find it for 80 or 75 or 60, and you're like, "No, I'm going right down to 20."
oh yeah. Yep, yeah. Yeah. Especially if it's something that I just want. I want it, but nothing's gonna make me jump unless they give me the offer I can't refuse. And
Yeah.
then I'm
I
super
do
excited
know, I
about
do
it.
know, and obviously, in your day-to-day life, you have to spend money. You have to buy groceries, you have to put, gas in your car, or even if you're driving a Tesla or an EV, you've gotta put electricity into that car, and that costs not nearly as much as gas, but you're still like, there's these day-to-day expenses, and you're always spending money, and you know, and it seems to have gotten a lot harder over these last 2, 3 years with inflation as well, right? You're just spending
Yeah.
more and more money. You go to the grocery store, you go to Walmart or whatever grocery store you go to, Costco or any of the grocery store, and you're just like, "Wow, I'm spending a lot more in 2024 than I was spending in 2020," right?
Yeah, definitely. A lot more. A lot more. So it's like, wow, $100 and I have 3 bags
Yeah,
versus, eight.
right.
So
Yeah, I'm sure we've all noticed that too, exactly, right? That, that grocery bill it's not fun. Like, we have to eat. Your stomach doesn't care if the economy is up, down, sideways, green,
yep,
red, blue, pink, whatever. The economy, your stomach doesn't care. It just says feed me every single day.
correct. Yeah. That's actually one of the stories I like to tell, because we spend a lot of money on groceries, but that is because we eat majority of the time at home.
right.
And I say
Which is good too.
majority.
That means you're not spending money at restaurants for the most part.
Correct. Correct. So yeah, like for us, I usually look at it as there's 7 days a week and there's 3 meals per day. So that's 21 meals per week. We probably eat 3 meals outside of the home per week. So
Yeah,
that's a lot of groceries to be able to, So my wife takes her food to lunch. I take my food to lunch. We eat breakfast at home, and then we cook at home.
yeah.
So yeah, so we hardly ever eat out, and even when we do, we're not trying to spend a whole bunch of money eating out. We go to normal places. So
Yeah, you're not going to the Michelin five-star restaurants that
no,
are that's like $90 for an appetizer or whatever,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. So, and even when we have to go, sometimes we get invited to those type of places with someone else, a couple or some type of event. And me and my wife are like, you know what? Hey, you want to split a steak? And so we'll end up, ordering one steak, a 10 ounce or 12 ounce for both of
Right.
us. And then we have some people that are with us. They're ordering a 12 ounce just for themselves. And I'm like, it's just not that.
Yeah.
I don't have to be stuffed when I eat, but long as I'm good, and 6 ounces is enough for me, really.
Right, right, right.
So
I'm
yeah.
just gonna give a quick shout out here. A very special thank you to Millionaire Mentorship for sponsoring this episode of the Passive Income Podcast. Millionaire Mentorship with Abundantly Erica will teach you everything you need to know about options trading, from covered calls to cash secured puts and everything else involved in options trading. Millionaire Mentorship has you covered. Use the link in the description below to get started today. So yeah, let's get into talking about investing, and let's start there with options trading. Have you ever done options trading? Is that part of your strategy, or yes, no, in between?
It is not a part of my strategy. I have participated in it. I am unsuccessful. So yeah,
I guess you
I'll
need to
leave.
take the course with Abundantly Erica, and she will teach
That,
you
that,
everything you need to know.
that's why I was getting excited because I was like, oh, Eric, I might need to talk to you. So yeah, so I have participated and definitely not in my favor. So I definitely don't put that on the top of my list of things that I participate in. So, but every now and then I do dabble in it, but nothing that's going to cause any harm or from that perspective. So, but ultimately, in regards from my investing perspective, I've been, I guess, lucky or just in the right place, right time with real estate. So that's kind
Right.
of
Okay.
majority, for my net worth is coming from real estate, getting involved with that. And I will say it kind of started when I first moved out of the home from my parents. So prior to that, I went to school, went to college for a very long time. I was in college for about 8 years. Initially, it was 3 years, and
Professional student.
yep, professional student. Originally, I went to get my associate's degree, so that took 3 years, and then I started over to go get my bachelor's degree, which took another 5 years. So yeah, so a total of 8 years, and that entire time I lived at home. So I've never lived outside of the home, until I actually bought my first house. So I lived at home. I tell this story a lot. I lived at home until I was 27 years old,
Yeah, and
and
there's nothing wrong with that.
nope, nope. I tell people if you get along with your parents and there's no bad blood or you have no issues, stay at home as long as possible. But also use that opportunity to save up your money. Don't just feel like you can afford any kind of car just because you're living at home with your mom, or dad.
Right.
Take advantage of that opportunity because they're allowing you to stay there for a discount. And once you move out, the
Yeah.
discounts go away. They go away.
Yeah.
So, I had no issues whatsoever. In fact, as I got older and started reading more about financial literacy, I realized that my entire family were living paycheck to paycheck. You know, and it's something that I never really paid attention to and didn't think about it. I just thought that we were doing okay. But looking back on it, we were paycheck to paycheck. We were driving extremely nice cars. I drove a Jaguar in high school. It wasn't mine, but it was my parents. But of course, I'm 17, 16. I'm driving a Jaguar to school. And so, back then I was like, my parents' car, it's not mine, but
Yeah, and you're like, "I'm
ultimately
popular. I'm driving a Jag."
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, living paycheck to paycheck, and of course, as I got older, I was like, I'm gonna just start opening up my parents' bills. I just started
Yeah,
looking at them, and
where's
then
this money
I'm start.
coming from? You started to get curious.
Yeah, so I started looking at the bills, and I'm seeing that we're behind on a $400 electric bill. And then the lawn man's coming over saying, "Hey, where's your dad? I haven't seen him in a while. He owes me, 3, 4 weeks." I'm like, "Wow, this is weird." And shoot, of course I had money, so I started helping paying some of the bills. I'm like, I live here and I'm using electricity. I'm just pay some of the bills.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what opened my eyes, to the financial space, a little bit, little after
Yep.
little. And I believe the biggest thing hit me on how important credit score was is when we were growing up and our air conditioning HVAC unit went out. And my dad didn't have any money, so he said, "Oh well, let's just see if we can finance it." And they ended up declining him. And I
Ooh.
was like, "What are we gonna do? We live in Texas. We cannot operate without an HVAC unit." So,
It gets hot in Texas.
yeah. Long story short, I had to finance it in my name.
Wow.
That's when the light bulb went off. That's when the light bulb went off. So,
Yeah, so that
yeah,
light bulb moment was, like, you realized my parents are living beyond their means, and I
yeah.
can't do that. I don't wanna do that, and you wanna help your parents as well, right? Is that
Oh yeah,
am I kinda
definitely.
getting some of the story?
Yeah. Plus, like I said, I live there, so it's my house too. I just don't own it,
Right.
but I live there. I'm using electricity. I'm using water. I'm using all of these things, food and everything. So, and I'm like, I'm making all this money and I'm just putting it in the bank. So why am I not helping out? So yeah, I just started paying bills. So, but it opened me up to electric bills, water bills, all those things as a 15-year-old, as a 14-year-old. Paying attention to this stuff, which I'm glad for it, So, but it
Yeah.
kind of started back then, realizing that, So
And obviously, your parents were just too proud to ask you. You're like, "Hey, you're living here, you've got a job, you're making some money," but your parents were just too proud to ask you to chip in and contribute until you finally said, "Listen, I'm gonna help out."
yeah, they didn't ask me or anything like that. Never even told me anything. And of course, my mom didn't know, which I was closer to my mom. And but my dad's the one that paid all the bills. So he pretty much paid all the bills because he made good money, and
Right.
yeah, he's just too prideful, back then, a man, you're not wanting to ask your kid for money, or whatever
Yeah.
the case may be. Or sometimes he has to borrow money, like $20, because I get paid tomorrow type of thing, but nothing to this extent. So, but opening
Yeah,
those
yeah.
bills, seeing that electricity is going to get cut off in 7 days. Oh, it was huge for me. So yeah, so I just
That's a
started.
big eye opener.
Yeah. So I was like, why?
That's a
And
huge eye
so
opener.
I didn't even ask any questions. I said, you know what? I want to be a man one day. I'm gonna just pay this bill. And then my dad got
Yeah.
mad at me for paying the bills. He's like, no, you're a kid. You live here. It's my responsibility. I'm like, but I live here too. So to me, it's like common sense. You
Right.
I don't want the electricity get cut off. So, I
Yeah.
started, yeah, one thing like, so in seventh grade, I started selling candy in seventh grade. So this is kind of when my entrepreneurship started. I was selling
Yep.
candy, but I was selling it from a magnitude. I was making $50 a day in the seventh grade. That's 250 a week. So I was making really good money, especially back then. And of course, I'd buy my tennis shoes, but I was
Yeah.
I was still saving my money, So that's kind of when it started. Of course, when I got a real full-time job, I was making money there, and in my past life, I've sold like back in the day when you used to sell CDs and DVDs, I sold
Yep.
those. So and I'm still living at home, and I was making 4,000 a week. So, I was like, why
4
not pay these
grand
bills?
in a week?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah, and it's my past life. I don't mind talking about it. Some people may think differently of me. That's not my concern, but it's the reality,
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, but living at home, working a full-time job, going to school full time, and I had a car. That's it. I had no responsibilities, you know? So I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna pay electric bill. If I move out, I'll be having to pay it even more. So
Yeah, the full electric bill and the water bill and the every other bill, right?
yep. Yep. So really, it's excited I had that opportunity. So, and it just kind of snowballed and kept going from there, and now fast forward to now, I'm 45, realizing, I've only, I haven't had a car note in 12 years,
Nice.
So
Yep.
and then when I was young, my dad bought me a Honda in 1998, and I drove that for 21 years. I drove it for 21 years. I was married and everything, and
Yeah.
still driving it. I just sold it, what, 3 years ago? Right before the pandemic, I just sold it. So,
Why? Why?
well, because my wife wanted a new car, and I wasn't going to have four cars. I was like, I'm not
Okay.
doing it. So that was the oldest. We were getting rid of that car. It was the
Yeah.
oldest. So I sold it for $1,000, and and then we ended up keeping my wife's car. She had a car at the time. Her car had been paid off, what, 8 years, so she had an Acura TL. So we kept that. So that was 14 years old.
Yep.
So we had that, then my wife's new car, and then my truck, which I'm driving today. And my truck is uh 17 years old that I'm driving right now.
Oh, man, I love this conversation. You're preaching to the choir here. My truck is 22 years old. I
Oh, you
love
got me
it.
beat.
Yeah, and even prior to that, I bought it in 2012, so 12 years ago, and,
Okay.
I've been driving it. It's my daily driver, and even prior to that, the other, vehicles that I had, I bought them all used, paid for them outright. I can't remember. Yeah, sure, back when I was younger, tried that whole thing with getting a new car and having car payments, but it was totally not for me. I'm like, "Why am I spending this much money every month on a car payment when I could just not have a car payment by buying something used, and I can make that thing work, right? I can
Yeah.
That's the other beautiful thing about old cars is you can just make them work.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
maybe you have to be a little bit more, mechanically inclined than some other people, but even if you're not, it doesn't take that much money to go to a mechanic and get it running and fixed and on the road, right? So
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
comparison to having that, say 5, 6, even nowadays $700 a month car payment, it's just
Correct.
like, and I joke, I'm not, maybe it's not even a joke. I'm like, yeah, my truck is only 22 years old. It's a 2002. I'm like, my truck's only 22 years old. It's good for another 20 some years. And honestly, it probably is, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I ended up having an argument one day with someone that has a brand new truck, and he was like, "Yeah, he couldn't buy a used because he had to feel comfortable and make sure that he wasn't necessarily going to get stranded. He needed something reliable." And I'm like, my truck is reliable too, right?
Right, yeah, my truck is 110% reliable. My truck is
Yeah,
probably more reliable than a lot of the newer vehicles.
yeah. Everything's reliable until it breaks down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, your brand new car can break on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like mine, but they all the vehicles, they give you warnings. People don't realize that.
Yeah,
That's
those
because
check
most
engine
people
lights come on
ignore.
for a reason.
Correct. Most people ignore them. So, but yes,
Yeah,
they
I've been
give you
driving around with my
warning
check
messages.
engine light on for 3 weeks. Well, that's not good. Don't do that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, everything's reliable until it breaks down. So, I mean, but that's just an argument that a lot of people don't want to even have. Sometimes
I'm
it's a
definitely
loose.
gonna tweet that out later and tag you in the tweet. Everything is reliable until it breaks down.
Yeah, yeah. So used house, brand new house, all the same. Something's gonna break.
Right, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So I don't worry about it. I wait till it happens, and then you fix it and you move forward with life.
Right, right.
So
That's actually a great segue. You said new house or, buying a, say, 150-year-old, 100-year-old house, and you mentioned, real estate. So real estate investing, is that kind of, it does sound like that's a significant part of your portfolio?
yep, yep, it is. I currently own, I guess, 5 properties, with one of those including my primary, and then one of those is a short-term rental. As of recently, I just converted it over it in March, and then the other ones are I have long-term tenants.
Yeah, so that is great passive income, right? Like, just
Yep. Passive
that's
income.
what we love
Yes.
here on the Passive Income Podcast. And I mean, we know rental properties aren't 100% passive because of, like we've just mentioned, there's something inevitably is gonna go wrong where you have to fix it. I have had great conversations with other real estate investors on here on the Passive Income Podcast where they're like, "Yeah, there are some weeks where I might have to spend 10, 15, 20 hours on a property, and other weeks where I don't have to spend more than 1 or 2." But either way, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hours, or 20 hours, that's a lot less than going and working 40 plus hours at a 9 to 5, and is that kind of the way you see it as well?
Yeah, which I'm having an argument with a couple of people right now because of one of my recent tweets in regards to what's passive, or should we be using the word semi-passive? And yeah, we can go ahead and stay right here for a moment because I have a bone to pick. Because the deal is you go by the majority, you don't go by 24/7. So anytime you say something, you're always referring to the majority. So just like we just talked about, my truck runs the majority of the time. I'm not going to say it doesn't just because it broke down one time last year. You look at the
Right,
majority of the time. So when you look at real estate, majority of the time, it is very passive. Someone just tweeted me right before this interview with you, talking about, you got to change the filters, you got to pay the bills, you got to do the financing, you got to do all this stuff. And I'm like, the financing is on autopilot. The
right,
filters, either I have them do the filters or I go over there to make sure that they've actually done the filters. And then maintenance, whenever there's an issue, I pick up the phone and call someone else to go fix it. And I compared it to the option. Even if you do nothing in your life and all you do is sit down and watch Netflix, Netflix is not passive as you're comparing it, because you have to pick up the remote, you have to sit down, you have to pick what TV show you want to watch. So it's not completely passive. However, once you do that and you sit down, it is passive at that point.
right,
So nothing is ever just 100% passive and you can sit back with your hands tied behind your back and receive passive income. Nothing works that way. You have to initiate something, you have to do something, but the
yep,
majority of the time. And that's what I tell people in regards to my real estate properties, because of my motto is, if I fix everything up front, the less amount of calls I receive throughout the year.
right.
So on every one of my properties, I probably get one call every year per property. So if you look at that, like someone called me last month saying that the garage came off the rails. So all I did was send my handyman a message telling him to go by and check it out.
The
My
garage
handyman
doors, you
sent me
mean?
a Exactly. My
Yeah,
handyman sent me a bill. I logged into my bank and Zelled him the money. So if you're not going to consider that as passive, I don't know what else to tell you, because you're going to also, if you owe somebody for your own primary house, you're going to pick up the phone and pay them the same way. I mean,
right,
these are things that we do on a normal basis. We pay our bills. So what's the difference from paying one more bill? There's not a difference. But people are having this argument trying to make it seem like it's a big deal, and it's really not. Technology is super big today in regards to paying someone a bill, or sending someone to go check on something for you, or controlling the air conditioning from your phone.
right.
So it is passive, but for the argument, it's semi-passive.
Yeah, yeah. And I loved your comparison there about Netflix. Is it's not completely passive because you have to kind of decide. And whether you're on Netflix or Amazon Prime Video
Yep.
or Disney Plus or any of the streaming services, yeah, you could be scrolling for a long time before you pick something that you actually want to watch. And I
Mhm.
kind of want to segue that into actually dividends as well. Dividends.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you're a
dividends.
dividend investor, but
I
kind
am.
of same thing, right? You need to do
Yep.
your own due diligence and research on a company before you decide, hey, I'm going to put whatever it is, whether it's 50, $100, $1,000, $10,000, whatever number it is for you. And when I say
Mhm.
you, I'm not necessarily talking about you. I'm talking about the viewer, the listener right now. Whatever that number is for you, do that due diligence and research. So there is some initial work up front. But then once you've made that decision and you've bought those shares in company A, B, or C, and you're sticking to your guns, and now then dividends do become passive. Like,
Yeah.
do you agree with that statement?
Oh, I definitely totally agree. You know, so dividends is probably the closest to getting to 100% passive. It's
Yeah,
probably the closest.
98%.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually the percentage I used. So yeah, it is the closest thing to it. Once you figure out the legwork up front, then everything after that is pretty much golden. But you still have to do work. Just like even though people say, "Oh yeah, I don't want to leave my house. I don't want to do any work, so I'll order stuff from Amazon." You have to go outside and get the package and bring it in. You have to open up the package, which means you got to go grab the scissors to open up the package. Then you have to make sure the actual product works, or you might have to take it to UPS to ship it back because it's broken and you have to get another one. So nothing is passive. There's always some type of
Yeah,
work or level of work, you know, that is involved with everything in our life.
yeah,
Everything. There is not one thing that doesn't involve anything. So the
right.
argument is crazy, but to suffice them, we the finance community into it, we might just have to start referring to semi-passive because the arguments are just ludicrous at this point. So
I actually do like that term, semi-passive, because there are a lot of semi-passive incomes out there, right?
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
I run an Amazon store and they handle all the work for me. And everybody says that you can have an Amazon store and it's pretty passive. But guess what? I have to go up the antes on my what do you call it? Advertisements. So I have to change my advertisement from $5 to $10. Would you consider that not being passive anymore because I have to change that from my phone? Because it's the same time that it would take me to text somebody, which I do that 24/7. So not really a big deal,
Yeah,
and
it
then
sounds pretty
sometimes,
passive because there's a few clicks on your phone. You're
yeah,
just literally
yeah,
you're just doing this, right? You're picking up your phone going tap, tap, tap,
exactly.
and yeah, so
Exactly. Of course, my Amazon business is a little bit different because I do not allow Amazon to store all of my units because my units are very big and they charge a lot of money for storage. So, me personally, I store them at my house. So, whenever my inventory gets low, I'll ship another box to Amazon,
right.
just to upgrade, just so I'm not, because I believe I did the math. It would cost me $300 a month just for storage fees. And of course, I told you I was super frugal. I can store those at my house for free. I'm already paying for my garage space. So yeah, so that takes a little bit of
Yeah,
work
that
for
makes
me.
sense.
Yeah, so that's more work for me. So does that mean it's not passive because Amazon is shipping those products out? Hey, it's semi-passive. But majority of the time, I'm not shipping them to
Right.
customers. I'm shipping them to Amazon. They do the work for me. So instead of me doing all the work, they're doing 80% or 90% of it for me.
Interesting. Well, let's give your Amazon store a plug here. We'll put the link in the description below. What do you sell on Amazon?
It's a private label product, so it's kind of, we typically don't say what our products are because people think that they're super successful when we say them out or anything like that. So, but yeah, it's not the best product, but I'm not losing money on it. So to me, that's how I look at things. I'm making profit. I'm just not making a ton of profit. So as long as I'm not losing on it, you know, I still have the opportunity to
Yep.
scale up. So that's one of my goals this year is to add another product and scale up on my Amazon store because looking back at the things that I've started in the past years, realizing which ones are the most semi-passive and which ones takes a lot more work for me that are not successful. So the options trading, not successful on it. I need to do less of that and do more of the real estate. I need to do more of the Amazon. You know what I mean? So
Right.
evaluating your situation in regards to everything that you do and do more of the things that are working and less of the things that are not working. So that's kind of my strategy moving, into 2024. Figuring out what I need to do, where I need to put more time into, and things of that sort.
Well, yeah, and that obviously definitely makes sense, right? Like keep doing what is working for you
Yeah.
and don't do what isn't working for you.
Yep.
That
Yep.
should
Most.
be common sense. Obviously the problem with common sense these days is it's not overly common, but
Yep.
um it sounds like you're
Yep.
on the right track of like, listen, I know what's working for me. I'm going to keep doing what's working for me. And if maybe down the road I can add and learn more and something else that also works for me, you're open to the idea, right?
Yeah.
definitely feel like
Yep.
you're a very open to learning and open to adding, new and more ideas.
Yep, yep, I agree. And speaking of that, the recent thing that I've added was I decided to join Turo, which is the car rental business.
Right.
So I ended up buying a Honda Accord, and I gave it to a guy to manage for me. So like a 67-33 split. So I don't have to do any work, semi-passive.
Yeah.
And so I will say that's not working in my favor at this point. So I'm doing some evaluations every month, to make that final decision to go ahead and pull it and to do something different. So right now, that's not in my favor. I'm in the red, I call it. Some people call it black. I don't know, but yeah. So that's one of the things that I've started recently and hasn't gone so well. So it's picked up a little bit, but I'm still not convinced that we're going to be staying with it long term.
Yeah, and I have seen some things on Twitter where some people have been a little bit more successful with the Truro,
Mhm.
and I don't know, maybe it's just sort of a little bit luck of the draw.
Yeah, well, I think for me, for number one, the car rent's fine, but I have someone taking a piece of my proceeds because they're managing it for me. So how would it be
Right.
if I managed it myself? But then again, now you're pulling me away, and that's not necessarily the objective. And then also one thing I realized after starting the business, because a lot of stuff you can't determine before you start the business, is that um, when you have real estate, your asset is sitting still the entire time. When you do Turo, you have a moving asset that's always moving around the metroplex, which means the probability of it getting damaged is a higher probability. So realizing
Right.
that's my asset is moving around versus sitting still, there's more opportunities for that business to go under or to be, shut down, which that actually happened to me because I guess on these newer, fancier cars, they have those radar systems in the front that scans the speed limit and scans all those different things. Well, if that radar breaks, your entire control board breaks down and therefore your car can't be on tour anymore. So yeah, my car was shut down because the part to fix it was on back order. So my car was shut down for about 4 months. Yeah.
Wow.
So now that I know what I know, Turo's not necessarily my top number one, side hustle. Real estate, because you can always find a replacement part for your real estate. But for your car, these new fancier cars, yeah, that part since the pandemic, that part might be on back order for a very long time. And you're basically your asset can be shut down. So you know, knowing that, I probably won't be adding to my Turo fleet. I'll be adding to my real estate fleet. So
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
yep,
sense. Exactly what you said too. You have a moving assets moving around the city or wherever, and I'm guessing too that also has to increase the insurance rates
yep,
of your at least that vehicle, if not all of your vehicles. I'm not sure how that all works, but
yep,
um,
yep.
and yeah,
Insurance, wear
100%
and
agree
tear.
with you too. Have a house and you can go and get a part, whether it's at Home Depot or Lowe's, or here in Canada we have several other
Correct.
chain uh, hardware stores as well, and
Yep,
you're gonna find that part, right? So
yep,
you're not. I'm not as concerned about finding things that I need to fix my house as, like you said, if it's a specialty part for a car, you might be out for quite a
yep.
while.
Yeah, and this deals with the computer system. So that's totally different. Not like when you have like a Chevy
Yeah,
truck, you can go get any aftermarket. No, this is the computer system. And then you have to pay the dealership to program it. So totally different ball game.
yeah.
Yes, if I would have known that this car had that, but because of my other cars are old, I don't know anything about this fancy computer stuff. So yes, with the new car, this computer system, and then when it broke off, my car was shut down for for 4 or 5 4 months, I believe. And basically I had to make the car note versus allowing Turo to pay for it for me.
Right.
Yeah. So
Now I am very interested in sort of the rest of your investing strategy. So we've already
okay.
talked about not so much into options, heavy into real estate. We've touched a little bit on dividends.
Evidence.
I
Yeah.
guess just sort of what. what is your strategy within the stock market, I guess?
Well, so in the past, like I said, I've been totally focused on real estate. And of course, we have our 401ks that we put money into, but it really hasn't been like me really buying stuff, in like in my own personal brokerage. Really hasn't been that way. So I'm not really heavy on that side, although that is the goal for this year. I don't know if you saw one of my previous posts, but I've been laid off for 14 months. So I just found a job in November. So I'm trying to, catch back up with a few things or whatnot, and
Right.
really go heavy on the investing this year is my goal. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Increase the automatic, purchases for myself, for my wife, as well as for my two children. So they have brokerage accounts as well, and so they receive dividends. So they're getting income every single month. But yes, I really need to increase mine. So really focused on like investing in, ETFs that follow the S&P. So that's kind of my goal. Probably try to get heavy into
Yep.
like VOO, and just keep it simple. And that's only because I played the options game, and now I need something more simple. So I'm trying to do something a little bit simple, put it on autopilot, and just walk away from it. So that's kind of my strategy starting this year off, from that perspective. And so build up that account more, um, so yeah, so that's kind of my strategy on that. So my dividends is really, I mean, I don't really, I have like my brokerage account. And so I receive dividends, which is probably about 1,000 a year. But then I don't necessarily calculate my dividends in like my 401ks and things of that sort. I haven't really sat down and calculated those. But that's like the goal moving forward as I try to get organized this year because I'm really bad at being organized. And so I want to put everything on a spreadsheet so I can be able to track everything and monitor, so I can show my journey as well. Because that's one thing that I lack in, and I'm not able to show the exact that journey on paper. I can see the numbers all day long, but I want to be able to see it on paper, and shows sequential every single month how we're making progress. So that's kind of the goal for moving this year in 2024 to focus on that, as well as I plan on adding another piece of real estate to the portfolio this year.
Right.
And yep.
Yes, spreadsheets are amazing for tracking progress. I mean, I
Yes.
absolutely love Excel. I'm only, amateur to intermediate on Excel. I know Excel can do amazing things, but
Hmm.
even just for tracking with just simple formulas on Excel, it's just great to see your progress because I do track my dividends every single month, every single
Yeah.
quarter, and
Yeah.
my expenses and everything else. And I just,
Mm.
it's just like you said, it's great to see it on, well, not exactly paper, but on a screen in front of you. You see the
Correct.
numbers, and it's great, right? It's motivational as well. I do
Yes.
want to kind of circle back. You said you were between jobs for several months, and I guess the question is that the real estate portfolio carried you through those months, being able to have that, I guess, cash flow from all those rental properties? That's I'm guessing obviously how you survive that, right?
Yeah, yeah. So there's several reasons. So we can definitely talk about that. So I'm in the internal audit field. And so I've been doing that for 16 plus years, and I actually don't like it anymore. So I ended up losing my job. And I was laid off because they decided to outsource our entire department. So that's kind of how I lost my job back in August of 2022. And of course, because I don't like internal audit anymore, I was looking for jobs outside of internal audit. So every job I applied for was the opposite of internal audit. And basically, 14 months later, I finally decided to apply for internal audit job, and I was able to get another job. So, but in regards to that, how I was able to survive is obviously is a multiple reasons, if you will. From number one, just being super frugal. I don't spend money just because I have money. So I can go out and buy any car I want to right now, but I have other goals that I'm trying to get to. So I don't go buy a car because I have other goals, and that might slow me down. So, the entire time prior to me even getting laid off, yes, you're right. Real estate, the Amazon business, the Turo business, which that's in the, negative from there. And then let's see, and also the YouTube. Luckily I started YouTube 4 to 5 years ago. So I had that income coming in, and even though I had all these different types of incomes coming in, I wasn't spending it. I wasn't spending it,
Right.
So 2021 on YouTube, my YouTube account did more than my 9 to 5 job. And I didn't
Wow.
spend it, and I didn't spend any of it.
Wow.
So I think that's what helped me, feel comfortable, for number one. Also, my wife worked. I don't want to discredit that. My wife was still working, but we also live below our means, so that's why I said
Right.
pretty much my job, her job, and YouTube, that's three incomes in the household, like three huge incomes, and we were still living way below that. So, and of course, no car note is definitely helpful from that perspective, that no car note, so, and just being super frugal. I don't buy expensive shoes and expensive clothes and all those things, and I like to get stuff on sale, even when I travel. So I tell people all the time, my favorite airline is Spirit Airlines, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Right.
So I can fly
That
me
is a
and my
great segue talking about YouTube. Did you know
oh
you
yeah.
have 105,000 YouTube subscribers?
Yeah,
And I'm gonna help you get closer to that gold play button by just clicking that right there too.
well, I sure appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. So yeah, so we can definitely talk about YouTube. That's definitely a story in its own,
Yeah,
especially for people that are
please
thinking of
dive in.
starting YouTube.
'Cause 105,000 subscribers, you have one of those nice silver play buttons, and that's a great, success, right?
Yes, it is. It's definitely a success, especially when I did not think that would ever get there. So
Yes.
definitely success. And I will say that it didn't come easy. It did
No,
not come
YouTube is
easy.
not passive income. YouTube is a grind. It's hard
Yep.
work.
Yep. So some people have the audacity to say that I got lucky.
Yeah,
But
after 1.3 after 1,300 videos, you got lucky, right?
yeah, yeah. So I put in my work. I put in work. So and I'll just give you guys an example. When I started YouTube for the first 2 years, I was putting in 4 hours every day while working a nine to
Yep,
five job, while having two little children at home and a wife. So I put in work.
yep,
So and
and
pretty
that's what
much
it takes, right?
yeah, yeah. And just to give somebody a little bit of clarity, my 9 to 5 job was 7 to 4. And then after I got off work, it was all family time until family went to sleep. And then when family went to
Right,
sleep about 9:30, 10, that's when I started YouTube. I did YouTube every night from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m.
wow,
to get back up in the morning to go back to work.
wow,
I made the sacrifice. I committed to it. I asked my wife if she would help me commit to it. And she said, okay, we'll see how this goes for the first year. And we did it for the first year. I made some progress that I thought that was pretty decent. And I reevaluated my situation. I said, you know what? I can't necessarily say I should continue or if I should stop, but I think I should try for one more year. And on that
okay,
second year, that's when I caught the huge growth, the huge growth.
yeah,
So,
wow. And obviously
yep,
1,300 videos, I could be scrolling back here forever. I'm obviously on the videos, page of your channel,
yes,
and obviously so many videos, so much hard work. I know how much hard work goes into making every single YouTube video. And so,
yes,
honestly, congratulations and hats off to you for sticking with it and getting there and getting to that. Like I said, 105,000 subscribers is amazing, right?
yep. Thank you, thank you. So, and this is, and just by the way, full transparency, this is not my first YouTube channel. My first YouTube
Right.
channel, I failed.
Yeah.
I failed. So, but
Yeah,
guess
well,
what?
and I think that's
I didn't give
a
up.
lot of you know what? You wanna know an interesting story? Mr. Beast's first YouTube channel also failed, so
Oh yes, that's one of my upcoming tweets that I have scheduled already.
yeah,
That
it's
me and Mr. Beast
and
have
I
that in
mean,
common.
yeah, he's obviously done very well for himself, and he obviously, grinded through everything, and he just became obsessed with learning everything there was to learn about YouTube and how to be successful on YouTube, but yeah, so
I believe most people don't know. I think this is accurate. You can fact check me, but I believe Mr. Beast said that his first 7 YouTube channels failed.
oh, I'm not sure about that, but
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
possible. It's
Yep.
highly likely actually, so
Yeah. Yeah. So, definitely, it's just really what you put your time into it and paying attention. It's not just doing the videos you want to do, it's also paying attention to the audience and how the algorithm is working in your favor, because sometimes you have to pivot and you have
yeah.
to move, and you have to do that. But that's not just with YouTube, that is with any business. You have to maneuver when things are not necessarily going right. You cannot sit there and ignore that things are not going right and do nothing. Most people fail there. You have to make adjustments at all times. All
Yeah,
times.
exactly. I'm just gonna quickly share this tab as well, and it is your, link tree, and basically just the link tree will be in the description below, and I will have, and you will be able to find Budget Bill on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere, um, if this comes up. Not sure
Okay.
why isn't the screen sharing? Don't know. The link tree will be in the description below, and you can find, Mr. Budget Bill on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and all of his other links, will be there, so, um,
Yeah, definitely
yeah, that's
appreciate
weird.
anyone's support. If you want to reach out to me, you can easily. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I try to respond to everybody. So if you definitely comment on one of my tweets, you'll probably see me responding back to you as well. So
Right.
Twitter has been a lot of fun, especially this growth that I just received over the last 3 months. It's been
Yep.
250% growth in less than 3 months. So I'm super excited about Twitter and where we're going with that. I call it Twitter. I know some people are referring to it as X, but it I always will be Twitter with me.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, and
And
I
there
just
it
I
is,
just crossed
Mr.
over.
Budget Bill on Twitter. This will be in the, description below as well, and you're right, yeah. Oh, you just went from you just literally did you see that? It just went from 12 to 13.
Yep. We just went we I just crossed over 1,000, I think on Monday. I
And so
just
you've
crossed
picked up another
1,000.
113 cents in 2 days.
Yes, yes. And I started getting serious in October. October the 24th, when I talked to the Frugal Gay. I had a
Yep.
call with him and he said something that sparked a fire in my butt. And I said, you know what? I'm about to get serious. Let's go. And I've been working
Yeah,
my butt
Tom,
off.
he has been here on the Passive Income podcast in the past, and he is
Yeah.
obviously, great for oh, finally, I got your link tree up. It will be
Oh,
in the description below. But
yeah.
Tom is, great for real estate investing. I can't say enough about the before and after pictures that he posts. What he
Oh
does
my
with
God.
properties is just absolutely amazing,
It
and I'm sure
is.
you agree.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I told him the other day, I was like, that's one reason why I'm afraid to show my real estate photos, because I feel like I can't do them justice like his photos. And he was
Right,
like, no, man, just post yours. And I'm like, okay, Tom. So yeah, it's definitely Tom. So me and Tom live in the same area. So we're like in DFW. I have not met him in person, but I look forward to that sometime this year.
right.
But yeah, Tom is definitely a great guy. And like I said, he sparked a fire up under me, and he said, "Hey, if you really want to get serious, go ahead and get that blue check." And after I got off the call with him, I ordered that blue check in 48 hours, and I got busy on Twitter. So
Nice.
yep, so definitely huge. I had 223 subscribers. and that was in October 24th. So I'm pretty excited about that growth. Hopefully, I can
Yeah, so
continue.
in 3 months, you've gained nearly 1,000 followers.
Yep, yep. That's why I said over 250% growth. So, but like
Yeah,
I said,
wow, amazing.
that wasn't lucky. That was me working. So on some of my videos caught a little bit of traction. I responded to every single comment. That was 300 responses in one day.
Right,
So yeah.
amazing. Great story. I've totally loved talking to you. It's been a great conversation again here on the Passive Income Podcast. Before we sign off, I'm just gonna open the floor. Is there anything else you would like to say that we haven't touched on yet?
One piece I did not mention, we didn't talk about my credit card history, my credit card debt. That was a huge part in my growth, I believe, because a lot of people on FinTwit talk about how bad credit cards are. Don't get credit cards, don't use credit cards,
Right.
and having credit card debt on how bad it could be. So we could talk about that. I definitely share my story with credit card debt.
Sure.
So for about 6 years, I carried about $65,000 on credit card debt.
Whew,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
lot of interest at
Well, not
20%.
exactly. Not exactly, because I was using the balance transfer method to avoid interest. So I kept rotating my debt around multiple cards for multiple years to avoid paying interest. So I did that for, like I said, about 6+ years. However, I made good money. My wife made good money, but instead of using that money to pay off that credit card debt, because I felt like my credit score was still 780. It wasn't affecting me. So why do I want to pay it off? There's no interest and it wasn't affecting my credit score. So instead, all the money that I was saving, I was buying more real estate instead. So
Right.
that's different from what they always
Interesting.
talk about. They always talk about paying off your debt first and then focus on buying real estate and, business and all that kind of stuff. I did it a little bit different. Not this is not a recommendation at all, but yeah. So I did that for 6+ years, rotating that money around, and I was buying and acquiring more real estate. So when me and my wife get bonuses, it went straight to the savings. Made the extra money, went straight to the savings. And then when a good property comes up, I'm using that money to buy another property versus paying down the credit cards. I was obviously meeting my minimum
Right.
spend on the credit cards, but I wasn't paying anything extra in principal. And then, as we talked about earlier, when I had the big year on YouTube, that following year, I said, you know what? This YouTube money is sitting here. I'm gonna go ahead and pay off all that credit card debt, and then paid all the 65 off.
Nice.
So that's kind of, so yeah, in the background, I'm building up different businesses, the YouTube, and building money from that perspective, but I wasn't spending it like I said. And of course, all my friends were like, man, you deserve it. Go buy another car. You just made that much money. Go buy another car. And I'm like, nah, I got some other things I want to do, and then I said, you know what? That credit card debt,
Right.
it's time to rotate it again. But instead, let's just go ahead and just get rid of it. Let's just go ahead and pay it off. So that's kind of the story in
Right.
regards to that. I am big on credit cards. I do participate in the points, the reward systems, and all of that. Obviously, if I'm carrying around 65,000 on multiple different cards at the same time, I definitely participate and still carry a lot of credit cards. I think I have about 23 active
Ooh,
cards, and that's just
wow.
from personal perspective as well as businesses. So I have three businesses. So one business card I can get it 3 times because of my 3 different businesses. And then considering I play in 2-player mode with me and my wife, I can get the same card 6 times to build up more points, reward points. So that's what I like to do because we love to take the family vacations. Last year, I surprised my wife and took her on a surprise trip for our 15-year anniversary, and one of the reasons I did the trip was because I failed at Mother's Day. So I had some making up to do. So that was one reason. And then the other reason was 15-year anniversary. So I surprised her and I booked a trip from Texas to New York, and then from New York to London, and then London to Paris. And
Oh, wow.
because of the credit card points, that trip cost $285 for the hotel and the flights.
Wow.
Yeah, for 8 days. So,
That is
um,
amazing.
yep. And of course, I was unemployed last year, so we did this while I was unemployed as well. So I didn't have to ask anyone to take off, but she did obviously. And so that was one of the biggest trips, being able to utilize some of those reward points from the credit cards. And I mean, that's an expensive trip, especially hotels. So a couple of the hotels we stayed in
Right.
were 1,400 a night, but we stayed for free. So
Wow.
yeah, so yeah, I think right now I'm sitting at about 1.2 million points, and so and I just applied for a credit card 3 days ago, so I'm waiting to get some more points. But obviously,
That's
to everybody, use credit cards responsibly. They can get you in a lot of trouble. So
yeah. So it's safe to say you leveraged the debt though with those credit cards into the real estate.
yes, I would say that. So, and I still leverage them because every time I have a rehab, I'm going to put all of the rehab on a new credit card. I'm going to order a new credit card so I can get those points on day one. And also, one of my other strategies is on all of my properties, all 5 properties, I do no escrow, which means I pay my own insurance, which means I pay my own property taxes. So every year at the end of the year, I'll apply for 2 more cards so I can pay for my property taxes and then pay my property taxes with cash. I mean, pay my credit card with cash just so I could get the
Right.
additional points. So I do leverage credit cards, and credit score from that perspective.
Okay, wow. I see we're already getting very close to an hour. This has been
Yeah.
another amazing conversation here on the Passive Income Podcast with Mr. Budget Bill, pronounced Trell. And I will definitely have all those links in the description below. Another very huge shout out to Millionaire Mentorship for sponsoring this episode of the Passive Income Podcast. That link will
Yes.
also be in the description below. So please check out Millionaire Mentorship if you are interested in learning options trading. And of course, if you're still here and listening nearly an hour later, please be sure to hit like and subscribe. Subscribe.